Hi, I'm Carl Vudervold. I teach low brass at the MacPhail Center for Music. I'm going to be doing a tutorial for the Minnesota All-State Band bass trombone audition etudes. Tyrell Etude number 9 is assigned as the lyrical etude for the Minnesota All-State bass trombone audition. When we think of something being lyrical, we want to think of it being like a song, as opposed to something that's maybe technical, which is basically just showing off a bunch of hard stuff that you can do on the instrument. So if you're trying to play something like a song, trying to play something lyrically, it's important to kind of think like, could I make up lyrics to this piece of music? Could I express it through the horn the same way that I would express myself when I'm talking? And when we're talking, there's shape to what we're saying. There's quick motion moving forward, and then there's a moment when we come back and come to rest. In music, we usually reach points where the music comes to rest. Those are called cadence points. When you reach the end of a musical phrase, we usually reach those cadence points on long notes. And for us as brass players, that makes breathing a lot easier. 90% of the time, that's what we get. We get to the end of a phrase, it's a nice long note. We can take a little bit of time away from the end of that long note, take a breath, and then come back in on the next phrase, the beginning of the next phrase. But in Etude number 9, there are a lot of times when the phrases end on short notes. So it makes the breathing kind of awkward, especially if you play this absolutely metronomically. The other thing is, we do not speak metronomically. We do not sound the same all the time. It sounds really weird when I do that, right? We shouldn't do it in music either. Don't fall into the trap of playing Etude number 9 with a metronome all the time. Yeah, practice it with a metronome some, but once you've got the notes learned, turn the metronome off and start shaping the music the same way that you would shape sentences when you're speaking. You'll notice when you listen to my recording of it, I don't play it absolutely in time. I take some space in certain areas and I shape the music, and that's part of what makes it sound lyrical, is it has the same sort of shape and contour as when I'm speaking. It is not all the same all the time, there's variation, and that's part of what makes it musical rather than just mathematical. Tyrell Etude number 21 is assigned as the technical etude for the bass trombone audition in the state of Minnesota for All-State. It's really important not to fall into the trap of saying, well, this is supposed to be the technical one, the other one was the lyrical one. When we're playing something technical, we still want it to sound musical, and for something to sound musical, we have to sound like we're expressing an idea. We have to make sure it sounds like we actually understand what's going on. Please, 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 please don't set your metronome for 108 beats per minute and try to just play all these notes at 108 beats per minute. That's pretty fast. And I would actually be surprised if there were any high school players who were ready to play this superbly at 108 beats per minute. It's much better to do it a little bit more slowly and feel like you know what you're saying, you feel like you're in control, and you're actually expressing something through the horn rather than just desperately trying to play all the notes. Let's be honest, bass trombonists, there's a lot of notes in this. A lot more notes than we're used to playing as bass trombonists. We're used to like half notes and maybe some quarter notes and eighth notes every now and then, right? So we got some 16th notes in here, a lot of stuff going on. It's important to feel like you know what's happening. I'm going to isolate one particular spot in here, the bars that have the triplets in them. It's like the third bar of each one of these systems. A system is a musical line. So the third bar of each system, we've got triplets. Let's try to figure out what's actually happening here so we're not just desperately playing a whole bunch of notes. If you look at the third bar of the first system, you can see it's actually a pattern. The same pattern, up a third, down a step, up a third, down a step, is just repeated 4 times, each time one step down, further down the E-flat major scale. That's called a sequence when you have that. So that's a way to kind of understand what's happening there. In the third bar of the second system, you can see there's this repeated A-flat, B-flat, A-flat, B-flat, A-flat, B-flat, A natural B-flat. If you can sort of hang on to that A-flat, B-flat relationship as sort of a buoy in the middle of this ocean of notes, it'll give you something to hang on to, help you give the music shape, help you feel like you know what you're doing. And notice the last one is a half step from A to B-flat. That's really bringing us home to that B-flat the last time, setting us up for a 5 going to 1, the B-flat landing on E-flat, the 5th note of the scale going to the 1st note of the scale. In fancy terms, that's dominant going to tonic. Now, in the third system, we've actually modulated to the relative minor key. That's C minor. The music kind of gets kind of darker sounding there. That's because we've modulated to the relative minor key. In the third bar of that third system, we've got a bunch going on around the note G. We're neighboring it below by an F sharp, and then we're neighboring it above with the A flat, coming back down to the G, back down to the F sharp, and coming back to the G. The composer is really bringing a lot of attention to that G. That's because what the composer is setting us up for there is 5 going to 1. Dominant in the key of C minor, that's G, leading to 1 in the key of C minor, tonic is C. So again, we've got 5 going to 1, dominant to tonic. That happens a lot in music. That's a big structural point. So finally, in the third system, the way you can kind of get your head wrapped around the third bar of the fourth system, moving on to the fourth system, is we've got a lot of this relationship of A flat going down to F. Doesn't happen all the time, but if you look at the first triplet, that starts with an A flat going down to an F. And then if you look at the end of the second triplet, that ends with an A flat going down to an F. Third triplet, well, doesn't necessarily stick to that pattern, but the fourth triplet begins with an A flat, ends on an F, and has a G passing tone in the middle. So that's kind of a way to get your brain wrapped around that third bar of the fourth system. So the thing I want you to take away from this clip is please don't just desperately try to play all the notes at 108 beats per minute. Feel free to go a little slower, but most importantly, find things that help you make sense of the music for yourself so you feel like you know what you're doing, you know what you're trying to say to the audience. And if you're trying to say something, you're going to be playing in an expressive way. And if you can play the technical etude in an expressive way, kind of like you would a lyrical etude, you're going to be doing very well at this audition. And you're going to be a fine artist who people enjoy hearing. Thanks a lot. Good luck.